very good evening. There's some breaking news coming in on top of this bulletin world today. There's news that's coming in, and that's from Turkey. Turkey will take steps to bring together leaders of Russia and Ukraine for talks in either the capital city of Ankara or Istanbul. That's Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who said this on Monday. And speaking after a cabinet meeting, he also said that he would like US President Donald Trump to be there attending the meeting alongside him. These are important developments that are taking place even as the Ukraine-Russia talks concluded in Istanbul, the day one of the talks. And while there was no negative outcome to the talks, there is some positive movement forward after various countries trying to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine. You have Turkey now stepping in. Erdogan saying that he would like to host the leaders of Russia and Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Vladimir Putin, in Ankara or Istanbul. Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine have ended only a few hours ago, and this only a day after Ukraine carried out a massive drone attack on Russia's nuclear-capable strategic bombers. Now, in such an atmosphere where dialogue is brief, subdued, the talks did yield an agreement to conduct a new prisoner exchange between Ukraine and Russia, and said that there would be another round of talks that was on the agenda. Right, those are details that are coming in. This comes at a time when we know that there is a massive development when it comes to the talks between Russia and Ukraine that took place in Istanbul. Their reactions to that story, take a look.
Vladimir Putin'i, gerekse Zelenski'yi.
I would like to bring together Vladimir Putin, Volodymyr Zelensky in Istanbul or Ankara, and even take US President Donald Trump with them. If they accept, I would like to come together with them in this meeting and thus turn Istanbul into a peace center. We will take steps towards this after the last meeting.
İstanbul'u adeta bir barış merkezi haline.
Now that's the big story we are tracking on World Today. Joining me is Ambassador John Herbst. He's head of the Eurasia Center at the Atlantic Council. Right now in Kyiv. He was in Odessa a few days ago when we spoke to him. Also joining me from Washington, D.C. is Rohit Sharma, reporting on what the United States of America is thinking and is planning on doing. Ambassador John, if I could come to you first. You're on the ground in Ukraine. A massive attack launched on Russia, unprecedented. What is the anticipation in terms of what Putin could do next?
Well, we watch very carefully. We, the United States, myself personally, and Ukraine as well, watch very carefully Russian moves. We note that the official Russian sources have said the strike was insignificant, that the Russian-controlled, the Putin-controlled mainstream media in Russia is also downplaying what happened. Though they note that some serious damage was done, they're saying it's not unprecedented. Only the war bloggers who are not quite controlled by the Kremlin are talking about this as a major blow against Russia. In fact, it is a major blow, but the fact that the Kremlin itself and the Kremlin-controlled media are downplaying it suggests that the Russian reaction will be more of the massive strikes we've seen on Ukrainian civilians, Ukrainian cities, Ukrainian infrastructure over the past 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, that's
what happened last night.
That's an important point. You're saying that they're downplaying it. We'd want to understand why. But before that, let's just understand how DC is looking at this entire attack. Rohit, if I could bring you in. Did the United States of America know that Ukraine was planning such an attack? Because it would have taken a long time. In all probability, they were preparing of such an attack even when Zelensky was in DC and was being humiliated, no less, by Trump.
Well, look, they've maintained, the White House has maintained, although no official confirmation, but they have maintained that the White House was not aware of these attacks or this planned attack, Operation Spiderweb. President Trump last month called President Putin as a crazy man and he wants peace. And that's the official line. He's pushing for both the nations to go for a full ceasefire. Now, I mean, yes, historically, you would assume that U.S. would be made aware of any such tactical move by Ukraine, but it is really surprising that Zelensky did this on his own without informing the biggest supporter of them in this war. So officially, Geeta, no, the U.S. did not know, and after the fact, we saw Marco Rubio holding a call and asking for de-escalation, as is the norm these days. So that's what we know for sure on the record.
Okay, Ambassador Herbst, if I could come back to you, somebody who served as ambassador of the US to Ukraine for over 5 to 6 years and has been focused on that region. In your estimation, do you think Ukraine would have done this all alone without any support, help, or informing any of its allies, be it the United States of America or particularly Europe over here, that really wants to distance itself, given that they could welcome an attack from Russia?
I think that it's not surprising that Ukraine chose not to inform Washington. Just like at times when Israel, which is highly dependent upon American arms, feels it needs to take strong action to enhance its security, it will not tell Washington. And this was certainly true of Ukraine with the United States under Biden. I'm not surprised to hear this is what's happened with Trump. And I've been watching now, the strike, that the successful Ukrainian strike has been known publicly for over 24 hours. There has been no official reaction from the White House, except to say they were not informed in advance. And we know that President Trump is quick to criticize things he does not like. I suspect they recognize that Putin has been obstructing the peace efforts that Trump has spent a great deal of time on, that putting pressure on Russia is necessary to get Russia to make a serious gesture towards a ceasefire. And what Ukraine just did was massive pressure on Putin.
Right, but Ambassador Herbst, while Russia is, or Moscow is clearly downplaying this incident because they do not want criticism from their own quarters, domestic quarters back home, Putin is not going to take this or let this pass. What do you think, or you anticipate Putin's next reaction is going to be? Are we looking at their nuclear doctrine having been changed, revised? Are we looking at tactical nuclear weapons here?
Putin has been very successful intimidating timid people, including, sadly, former President Biden and former Chancellor Scholz with nuclear threats, which he never delivered on. When Ukraine had the very successful counteroffensive in 2022, starting in the summer and fall of 2022, and kicked Russia out of more than half of its gains made after the big invasion, Russians threatened nukes but never used nukes. When they talked about Finland and Sweden joining NATO, Russians threatened nuclear use, they didn't use nukes. So this is bluster. Of course, the cost for Putin in many respects, if he actually used a tactical nuclear weapon, which would not stop the Ukrainians, would be substantial. So yes, some war bloggers in Russia have talked about this, but Putin is downplaying this, and he's ordering the media to downplay it because he doesn't want to be embarrassed, although he has been embarrassed, because the Ukrainians, if we can believe the reports, have destroyed 1/3 of Russia's advanced bombers. Those are also bombers that can carry nuclear weapons to shoot at the United States. So they have enhanced American nuclear security with this bold strike.
That's right. Ambassador Herbst, thank you so much for joining us. You're in Kyiv. Stay safe. But Rohit Sharma, you have just woken up, and so is Trump waking up to this news. We'll wait and see what he has to say about this entire development, especially the fact that, like you said, DC does not know or did not know, was not informed. So there's going to be a lot of fury from DC's side, and we hope you'll be tracking that for us too. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Elon Musk just exited Washington, quietly ending one of the strangest chapters in presidential politics. At the same time, Trump dropped Musk's close ally, Jared Isaacman, as his NASA pick, a clear sign Musk's sway in DC is indeed fading. With NASA in crisis and Trump eyeing a new loyalist, the question now is, has Musk lost his grip on America's space agenda for good? Find out in this report.
Elon Musk departed Washington this week, closing the curtain on what many are calling one of the strangest chapters in presidential history. However, Musk's quiet exit coincides with President Trump's decision to withdraw the NASA nomination of Jared Isaacman, a private astronaut, billionaire, and longtime Musk ally. President Trump abruptly yanked the nomination of Isaacman as head of NASA. Isaacman, once touted as a visionary choice, now becomes the latest casualty of Trump's shifting inner circle and Musk's dwindling influence in DC. SpaceX insiders say Musk is disappointed, calling Isaacman one of the most competent and good-hearted people he has worked with. It is a bitter end for Musk's time heading the Department of Government Efficiency, a role more symbolic than serious. Now insiders say the next NASA pick could be retired Air Force Lieutenant General Stephen Quast, a Space Force supporter and Trump loyalist. Behind all this is a much deeper crisis, a space agency caught in political crosswinds. Trump's proposed 2026 budget slashes dozens of programs and risks thousands of layoffs. Without a confirmed leader in place, NASA's trajectory, much like Musk's role in DC, is uncertain. So as Elon Musk retreats from the halls of Washington, his influence dims. His allies are sidelined and his grip on America's space dreams loosens. With Rudrashish Kanjilal, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Now, India won the war, but did it win the narrative? And what's happening between the US and Pakistan? US President Donald Trump had confirmed that representatives from Pakistan are coming to the United States as they seek to make a deal on tariffs with the US. Pakistan faces a potential 29% tariff on its exports to the United States of America due to a $3 billion trade surplus. Trump said he would have no interest in making a deal with Pakistan or with India if they were to engage in war with each other. Trump's remarks come a day after Pakistan officially initiated talks with the US on reciprocal tariff agreement. Meanwhile, Indian Trade Minister Piyush Goyal also visited Washington to advance trade talks with both sides aiming to sign an interim agreement by early July. India faces 26% tariffs on shipments to the US. Reuters reported last week that India is likely to allow US firms to bid for contracts worth over $50 billion, mainly from federal entities, as it negotiates a trade deal with Washington. Now, this is another major story we've been tracking. Iran has now warned of retaliation if European powers exploit UN reports showing it has stepped up production of highly enriched uranium and detailing its past secretive nuclear activities. This comes at a time when Iran is looking to have conversations with the US. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said he had told International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi in a phone call that Iran will respond to any inappropriate action by the European parties, referring to Britain, France, and Germany.
A new report by the UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, has raised tensions between Iran and the European countries like Britain, France, and Germany. According to the report, Iran carried out secret nuclear activities with material not declared to the UN nuclear watchdog at 3 locations that have been under investigation. Iran warned it will retaliate if European powers exploit UN reports for their political gain. Iran's foreign minister, in a statement posted on Telegram, mentioned that he told IAEA chief on a phone call that Iran will respond to any inappropriate action by the European parties. Another report issued by the agency found that Tehran had sharply increased its stockpile of uranium enriched to up to 60%, close to the roughly 90% level needed for atomic weapons. Earlier, Iran's foreign minister had described uranium enrichment as an essential need of the country.
They are saying that we shouldn't have enrichment which in reality means imposing their dominance on us. Why shouldn't we have enrichment, when all international laws and regulations grant us this right?
Iran's total amount of enriched uranium now exceeds 45 times the limit authorized by the landmark 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the Iran Nuclear Deal Agreement with world powers, and is estimated at 9,247.6 kilograms. According to sources, the four Western powers now plan to submit a draft resolution for the board to adopt at its next meeting. The resolution would infuriate Iran and could further complicate nuclear talks between Tehran and Washington. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
In yet another concerted move to de-recognize the father of the nation of Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, new banknotes were released in Bangladesh with new designs replacing the portrait of the former Prime Minister, with natural landscapes and traditional landmarks. Now, till now, all the banknotes feature the portrait of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who led Bangladesh to freedom from Pakistan in 1971 until he was assassinated by soldiers in a military coup 4 years later. Along with the new banknotes, existing notes having Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's portrait and coins will remain in circulation. The new banknotes released by Bangladesh Bank will have images of Hindu and Buddhist temples as well as historic places. They will also feature artwork by the late painter Zainul Abidin depicting the Bengal famine during the British colonial rule, but not Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. With that, let's take a look at some other stories from across the world in World at a Glance.
Nationalist opposition candidate Karol Nawrocki narrowly won Poland's presidential election, delivering a big blow to the centrist government's efforts to cement Warsaw's pro-European orientation. Nawrocki secured 50.89% of the vote. The outcome presages more political gridlock, as he is likely to use his presidential veto to thwart Prime Minister Donald Tusk's liberal policy agenda. Six people were injured on Sunday when a 45-year-old man yelled "Free Palestine" and threw incendiary devices into a crowd in Boulder, Colorado, where a demonstration to remember the Israeli hostages who remain in Gaza was taking place. A Chinese Harvard graduate's speech calling for unity in a divided world, delivered days after the US vowed to aggressively revoke Chinese students' visas, has sparked mixed reactions in the US and China. Her speech went viral on the Chinese internet, with some saying it moved them to tears.
Our shared humanity. Congratulations, class of 2025.
However, others said her elite background is not representative of Chinese students. Meanwhile, some have flagged her alleged links with the Chinese Communist Party. At least 31 people were killed and dozens of others were injured on Sunday morning when Israeli forces opened fire near a humanitarian aid distribution point in southern Gaza, where residents were gathering to receive aid.
Well, that's all in this edition of World Today. Before we go, we leave you with visuals of Mount Etna that erupted on the Italian island of Sicily this morning. Here's a dramatic video showing tourists running down the mountain as a large cloud was spewed out into the sky. That, it's a wrap. Goodbye and take care.
Incroyable! Tout le monde est en panique, tout le monde descend. Ah, truc de ouf là! Incroyable! Tout le monde est en panique, tout le monde descend. Ah, truc de ouf là!